Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to look firstly at the layout manager, which is the part of Traktor where we can modify each of the predefined Traktor layouts and save these for quick retrieval or create our own personal layout. You'll see this is where we sort of select the layout that we want here from this drop down, and that drop down relates to the options that are here. So you can firstly move these up or down in the drop down. So for the external mixer is first, I can move that back down again, or I can create my own layout. So I'll create an internal mixer layout. I'll move that up. I'm going to rename that by clicking here on whatever's in this field. So I want to be Paul's layout. So that's going to be renamed Paul's layout. Now my layout's going to differ to the rest of the layouts, so I don't want the global section. I don't need it. Also, I won't need EQ or faders, and I won't need a crossfader. So I've just created my own personal layout there. Now I can still go back and use these layouts if I want, but I've also got my own layouts stored there. So it's up to yourself. If there's functionality there that you don't use, it's really handy for decluttering your workspace and getting rid of that functionality that you don't need. And you can just save your layouts there and rename them as you want. You've always got your defaults there. They'll all be accessible. You'll see Paul's layout there appearing at the very top. So the next item we look at then is deck details. First up, deck styles. We can choose from either mini or full-size decks here for decks A and B, and decks C and D down here. Advanced switches are advanced controls on or off for decks A and B here. So they're the advanced controls there. You'll see them disappear then, and you can do the same for decks C and D down here. Scratch panels will only really apply to you if you are using Traktor Scratch, so you can show the panels there as well. These buttons here then, these relate to the advanced panels, so this allows you to choose what the default panel is when you open up the advanced controls. So let's open up, you'll see Q is the default there, but if I wanted on deck B to have my move as the default, you'll see next time I open it up, move will be the default there. So again, you can mess around with those and see what ones you use the most and select those to be the default ones for you. Going on then to deck heading. So you basically the same controls there for decks A and B and decks C and D. Deck heading, show cover art. So we can display the cover art up here of any tracks that we have loaded that have cover art embedded. This section here allows us to change the information that is displayed in the deck heading. So if you want the top row, you have 3 rows here, top, middle and bottom. You can have title, you can choose any one of these fields really, display the information that's relevant to you, that's useful to you, that's going to help you, and you can go in and modify all that in there. Down here then, pitch controls. If you don't use the pitch fader, you can get rid of it and make more space on your screen, and the same with the phase meter, you can get rid of it by deselecting there. So that's the deck details. We'll have a look now at the browser details. Very, very simple. You have a preview player which can be loaded up. You'll see by clicking this, you'll see a preview player has appeared here where you can preview tracks just by loading them into that player. You can deselect that if you don't want it. Show cover art again, that's displaying the cover art down here in the bottom left hand corner. Show playlist favorites. So if I deselect that, you'll see the favorites have disappeared. And there they are again. You can, I showed you this in an earlier tutorial, but you can drag playlists onto any one of those playlists and then assign them to your F keys as well for quick and easy retrieval. Show track info. That relates to, if I load a track in here, you'll see that's the track info there. So it just shows you at the bottom. And it hides it again if you don't want it. And status bar, error messages, it's worth having this selected as it'll highlight any problems there are with the track that you have just loaded. So that's the browser details, fairly straightforward and self-explanatory. Looking at the global view options then. Highlight beat markers. With this selected, the beat grid will be brighter and more visible on your track. So if I load up a track here and then go in and deselect that, you can hardly see the beat grid there, so it's worth having that selected. Show minute markers. That basically drops a marker. It'll show a white line for each minute on the stripe view. So you see down here, that's 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, and so on. On the next one here, we have display deck focus. So that basically shows me what deck I'm actually sort of using at the moment. So you'll see it's highlighted in orange there. Show value and over control. This basically shows me the value here. See, pan is at 0%, gain is at plus 1.1 dB. So if I don't have that selected, it won't show any value there. The next section then is the channels here. We can display either beats in high or beats in envelopes. What that is, that's to do with the waveforms. So the waveforms will, this will basically configure how the waveform looks. Beats will display the beats of the track only, while beats in highs will show the beats in the high parts of the track in the waveform, and then beats in M will show beats on the envelopes. I generally leave it on beats and highs. Track end warning. You can tell Traktor to flash up a warning when it reaches a certain time left in the track. So I generally would have that around a minute left, and you'll see it'll start flashing red here when it hits a minute, the last minute of your track. So play marker position, that's my current play marker position there where the red stripe is. But if you want to move that to the left, you can do so, or you can move it to the right. I think most people I've seen have typically got it slap bang in the middle. This stripe view fit again doesn't really apply here. It's more for Traktor Scratch users that should be looking at that. And then these couple of miscellaneous options here: switch to full screen and startup, which is self-explanatory. Full screen resolution, that's basically using the resolution on my desktop. You can change the type of font if you want, the font size. You can change the height of the rows. You'll see the rows in my library there getting bigger, smaller. And then you can reset any hidden dialogues there for menus which pop up, offering you different options and that kind of thing. So the controller option then, controller manager rather, this is where we can import any settings that we have relating to any controllers that we're working with Traktor. So the first thing you'll want to do if you've just bought a new controller and you've plugged it into Traktor, you'll want to import the MIDI map for it. And thankfully most of the modern controllers being launched these days, there are Traktor MIDI maps already loaded in here for it. So you just click import, go to MIDI mappings, and then you have a list of all the available manufacturers that have MIDI controllers with MIDI maps already defined in Traktor. So we'll get the native instruments, we'll get the control one, and we'll open that. And you'll want to click whichever one of these apply to you, whether it's keyboard mappings. In this case it'll be controller mappings, but you have options there for different types of categories that you might want to import. And that's basically imported the MIDI map for the Traktor Native Instruments Control X1. You have options here for modifying your MIDI map and for creating MIDI maps of your own, which is something that we'd probably look at in a more advanced tutorial. But for now, that's really all you need to know for this, is how to import your MIDI maps and where to find them and that kind of thing. So finally then we have an option. This came with Traktor 1.2.4 for the Control X1 settings. I'm not going to go into this either, because if you don't have Control X1 it won't mean very much to you. If you do have a Control X1, the instructions are in the manual explaining exactly what these options all do here. So that's basically wrapped up the Traktor preferences section for you. In our final section here, final tutorial, we're going to have a look at some of the effects and show you some pretty cool effects that you can do in Traktor Pro.